Alright, so you're looking at a 2014 Honda CRV, doing front wheel bearings on this. These are press-in style wheel bearings, so it's not like a lot of the cars where you just pull the hub and the bearing out together and just replace it as a unit. This actually has a separate bearing that goes in that steering knuckle, and you do have to have a press to press it in and out. So if you don't have a press, I can show you how to get it out so you can take it to a machine shop or someone that does have a press. Some of the auto parts stores have presses, and your local machine shop, if you have one in your area, should be able to press them in and out for you regardless. You'll save a lot of money even if you go that route and have someone else press it in and out versus because to be honest with you, a lot of shops don't have presses either. I got a small one here that I use, but you'd be surprised how many shops don't have presses. They'll just farm it out to the local machine shop to have it done, and then they charge you more than what the machine shop charged them, and then they also charge for labor and all that to put it in and out. So wheel bearings on a car like this can get kind of pricey, you know, because you have the cost of the bearing and then the extra work to do it. So anyway, if you're a little bit mechanically inclined, you should be able to pull this knuckle out and take it to the machine shop, have them press them in and out, and then you can put it back together and be good to go. Save some money that way. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on pulling this apart and show you what you need to do to take it apart, and then we'll go. Alright, so I got you set up hopefully where you can see everything. Go ahead and pull this brake caliper off first. I believe it's 14 mil underneath. Yeah, it is. I don't even know why I checked. I know it is. Almost all Hondas are. So pull out your two caliper bolts. And like always, if you watch my other videos, I always recommend getting a bungee cord or something to hold this caliper out of the way, and don't let it hang on the hose. It amazes me sometimes. I watch some of these other videos and guys let it hang on the hose, which, you know, I guess they get away with it sometimes, but it only takes a second to hang one out. Again, I use one of these OTC hooks when I do it. You can get those at auto parts stores pretty cheap. Now, she does have the hose here on the strut. You probably don't have to remove that. I'm going to go for this caliper bracket next, which I believe is 19 millimeter. On the back side here, it is. So of course, I'm not prepared. Didn't get the air hose over here. Hoping the glare from that light is not too much. Got this new camera. I'm not a real big fan of it. Broke my other camera filming. So just get yourself a 19 millimeter socket. Take off the two bolts back here behind the rotor that hold this bracket on. You'll see what I'm talking about when you get yours up in the air. Got two bolts. And your brakes and your caliper bracket should come right off. Set that off the side. Now we're going to pull this rotor off. Hondas have these little screws here, and the best way to get them off, I thought I had all my tools over here before I started, is to use a impact screwdriver. It looks like this. If you don't have one, I know this is I believe this is a Matco or something like that. I can't remember now. I've had this one for years, but Harbor Freight does sell them pretty cheap in a kit. And you just whack it a few times. That breaks the screw loose. And anyway, that's what holds really hold the rotor in, but that's what they use. And it's extra protection, I guess. Alright, on the two, they also have threaded holes in the rotors to thread bolts into. And what that does is press against the hub. When you screw these in, it presses against the hub. It pushes the rotor away from it. This is not the right size. Alright, what size is this? Maybe this is the right size. This is the right size. So anyway, you just thread 2 bolts into the rotor. That should pop it right off like that. Alright. Pull the rotor off. This knuckle is really rusty on here. It's weird, this car, the wheels actually rusted out on this car, and she had to get it replaced. And now these knuckles are super rusty. And I don't know, because the rest of the car is not rusty. So we'll go ahead and get yourself a, I think it's a 36 millimeter axle nut socket, and pop that off. Usually I do a little push, make sure it's not seized. It pushes real easy. So at this point, alright, so I went ahead and removed the rotor, or the cotter pin on the tie rod, and I thought it was 17, but it's actually 19 on this side. Once you get that nut off, I don't recommend using a pickle fork on tie rods. They do have tie rod removers. If you're going to replace the tie rod, it's fine to use a pickle fork. Otherwise, just tap on the knuckle on the side here. And usually a few good hits will release it. That, so it's off. Now all we have left is the bottom ball joint. There's 3 bolts on that. Maybe that's what's 17 mil that I'm thinking of. Check here. Yeah, those are 17 mil. So I'm going to go ahead, just get yourself 17 mil impact and socket, and take off these 3 bolts to the ball joint. Actually, it's 2 nuts and 1 bolt. You got 2 nuts on the outside, and then there's an actual bolt in the middle. It goes up through the ball joint. It'll help if I want it. Alright, so now the ball joint's loose. So all we got left now is the steering knuckle and the strut up here. Oh, we do have one more thing. Actually, it's a pretty important thing. It's kind of a stressful thing. You got the speed sensor you have to take off, and it actually picks up the signal from your wheel bearing, and they can be rusted in there. It's a 10 millimeter bolt behind this shield right here. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that out, the 10 millimeter bolt. The other side came right out, the speed sensor. Sometimes they want to be rusted in there and don't want to come out, and it's a big pain. But I got lucky on both sides. So you pull this out. I don't know if you can see that. This light being oppressive. So it's right here. Just pull that straight out. You may have to wiggle it back and forth a little. These actually came out pretty good. There's a lot of rust on it, but it actually came out, so I'm happy about that, because sometimes you can break those coming out and then you're up the creek. The worst things happen, you can get them out, but you don't want to make extra work for yourself. So these are 22 mil nuts with a 19 millimeter bolt on the other end. That one's flying. Sometimes you gotta kind of tap these out. I just put the nut back on, just get a couple love taps. Trying to get my stupid light cord in the way. I had a lot of cordless lights, 4 of them, and they all have broken. I lost one. I guess I left it on a car. Gave it back to the customer. I don't even know which car, which customer. So I lost one that way, and then I've had 3 basically die out and break. Had different issues in the last month or so. So I'm back to corded lights for now. See, I don't have much stuff with the uncorded with the battery lights. So that's it. Get those 2 bolts out on the strut. Got 22 mil on the nut side and 19 on the bolt side, and this thing should pull out now. Like I said, check your axle, make sure it pushes in. If it doesn't push in, it could be rusted in there a little bit. You may have to persuade it. That happens quite a bit on the older cars. And anyway, so you should be able to just grab it now. And don't pull too hard on your axle. You don't want it falling apart. Not that it's that easy to fall apart, but you still don't want to put a lot of undue stress on it. Slide it out. Alright, so that's it. So we'll go over taking the bearing out and the press that I have. Hopefully it works. My press is getting kind of beat up lately. And then we'll put it back together. But that, if you're going to take yours to the machine shop, that's all there is to it. I mean, no, it looks easy with the power tools and everything. I've done it a million times, but that's the process of getting this hub off and taking it to the machine shop. So I'll go over and we'll start taking this hub apart and kind of go through that process in case you have a press or you want to see how it's done. Alright, so the first thing I always do when removing the bearings on this is I flip it over. You want to get that hub out. I got the hub out on the other side, so you can see what I'm talking about here. You know, it's your wheel hub. So I already have it out on the other side, but anyway, what I do here is I put it over big blocks on the ground, and the reason I do that is I have a small press, and it's just easier for me to bang it out real quick with a small press than it is to put it in the press and set it up because of the size of my press. So anyway, I put a bearing driver in the middle right on that hub. Use the bearing driver rod, put it on there and beat it out. I've already hit this about 5 times pretty hard. It's almost ready to fall out. So I'll just probably just end up tapping this and it'll come right out. So here it goes. So there, it's out. Like I said, I already hit it a couple times. It doesn't take a whole lot to get these out. And this is the bearing driver I used. And anyway, so now the hub is out on this. So we're going to have to cut this off. This is part of the race right here. I'll show you that. We'll have to cut this off. And then this will be ready to go back in with the new bearing. And on the hub now, you have a, and this bearing is very loose in here. This is the bad bearing. Making all the noise. So on this you have a snap ring in here, pretty big one. Got to get that out first, and then we'll drive this bearing out. So I'll get up on the table, we'll take this out, and then I'll show you. I'm just going to go ahead and take this out, and then I'm going to set this in the press. I'll show you pressing it out, and then we'll go from there. But just know that there is a big snap ring in here, and you have to pull that out with a big pair of snap ring pliers or whatever you have available to you. Once you get that out, you'll set it up in the press like this, kind of upside down, and start pressing this bearing out in the middle. Alright, so this is actually what I use to press it out. I do quite a few Hondas, and I think even the Kias and some of the other ones use this style of bearing. This is actually just an old bearing that I have a race driver plugged into, and I just set this on top of the bearing. It lines up perfectly because they're all about the same size, and pushes it out. So sometimes it helps to keep some of your older parts laying around. So you just set this in here. I got this set up. You know, it's upside down the way it's supposed to go. This is actually a differential cover, a steel differential cover off a Jeep. That's what I use to catch it. You got to kind of improvise when you got the smaller presses on what you use and how you use it. So yeah, pretty much just set this in there on top of the bearing, and start pressing down. Good things happen usually, hopefully. You know, you got to make sure everything's lined up good, and then just go ahead and press it down. I'm going to go ahead and do it. Kind of time consuming for the camera, but basically you get the idea. You just set it up and put the press. Alright, so I got the old bearing now. I'm getting ready to press the new one in. Here's the old bearing. You can see the bearings right here. The reason you can see those bearings is because we pulled that hub out, and the hub and that race is usually what covers this up. And on this side you got kind of a gray looking ring around it. This goes on the inside, towards the inside of the hub. Here's the new one, and it's got a little plastic cover on it. Anyway, you want this gray area, this gray ring, to go downward, and the reason for that is because this is the actual race for the hub right here, and we press the hub back in, it'll get pressed into this part and protect that bearing. That's what that rides on. So when we put this back in, always make sure you put this end down towards the inside of the hub or the knuckle. And anyway, so we'll just set this up here, and go ahead and start pressing this in. You can see my press has seen better days. That's okay. Still get the job done. So the idea, of course, is to go in as straight as possible with this, and start cranking it down. So I'm gonna go ahead and start doing that. Get it centered as good as possible. You don't want this to go in crooked. Try to center it after it's already started. And this, you want to find something, a cup or something, whatever you have laying around, that you can put on top of the bearing, protect the bearing, and is wide enough to where it sits on the outside of this bearing. You don't want to push on the inside of the bearing where that gray ring's at, as you may damage it. Now to start out here, I'm kind of going crooked a little bit, so I'm going to have to readjust it. It's usually how it is when you start these. You may have to readjust it a few times to get it where you want it. Anyway, I'm going to set it up and get it. Alright, so I finally got it straightened out and messed with it a little bit. You can see here, it's just going to go down. It's going down straight, and Once it bottoms out on that bottom, just stop. You don't have to keep cranking on it. You're not going to make it any tighter. So if you're doing this at home yourself, once this goes down in there and stops on that ring on the bottom, just stop there, and then you're ready to put your snap ring back in. So this has to go down past where the snap ring goes, but once you get there, you can't go any farther, and there's no point in trying to make it go somewhere it can't go. So I'm going to go ahead and finish cranking this down, and then we'll address this right here. This is the hub, and this is that race that you actually see where you don't see it in the bearing, where it's showing. This here is part of the bearing. It's the race for the hub, and that's why you can see those ball bearings in that black gasket, because this is on this hub. It's stuck on this hub. So I'll show you how to cut this off real quick, and we'll do that, and then we'll be ready to put this whole thing back together after we push this back in. So I'm going to go ahead and finish cranking on this thing, and then we'll address that hub and start rocking and rolling. Alright, so you want to get your hub in a vise like this, and what you're going to do is take a cutoff tool and cut it at an angle, and you want to cut it down almost to where it hits this hub. You don't want to go into this hub and damage it, but you want to put a pretty good cut into it to relieve the stress. And once you get that relieved, you should be able to put like a punch or something behind here and just pop it off. So I'll kind of show you. I'm not going to go through the whole thing here. It usually takes about 5 minutes or so, but you're just going to kind of come at an angle like this. You're just cutting at an angle and you're going down almost to this hub. You don't want to hit this hub and damage it, but you want to take enough pressure off of this so we can pop it off. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up off camera so the compressor don't kick on, and like I said, just get it down, pretty good gash in it, and then this thing should pop off. We'll get behind here with something to pop it off. Alright, so it didn't take long at all, about probably 2-3 minutes, and got it off. Still a little bit stubborn. Right at the very end. But you can see here, I did not go all the way through it. All you gotta do is just, like I said, cut almost all the way down to it, and that'll take enough pressure off of it, and it doesn't ruin your hub. So now we're ready to press this hub back into the bearing where it's supposed to go. I got another one of these to do. I'm doing the other side at the same time, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that one off and get it ready, and then I'll show you how to press this back in. This is pretty easy on this, and then we'll start putting it back on the car. Alright, so all you need on this is putting the hub upside down, putting the knuckle over it, centering it off real good, and then pressing down on it. Find something to put on the inside of this hub that's bigger than the bearing, so you're not pressing against the bearing, obviously, and just come down on this. And this is the same as the bearing. Once it bottoms out, stop pressing on it. There's no reason. You can't make it any tighter than what it is once it bottoms out. And I put some lube in there, and you can see it's running out now, so it's bottomed out. So there's no reason to go any farther with it. So once you get that in, you're ready to put this thing back together. You can expect a machine shop to charge you probably $50 or $60 to put these in. And anyway, it's ready to go. So we'll go ahead and go over to the car and start. Alright, so we're back. Hopefully I got the camera set up where you can see everything. I already got started in there. All I do on this is just lay it in there, get the ball joint nuts started on it so it doesn't pop out. Slide the axle in and then put your 2 bolts in for your strut. So what I'm going to do now is just go ahead and tighten everything real quick. That's the order. You put the ball joint in first. It kind of holds everything so it doesn't start popping. Ow. Can't speak. So just get your 17mm socket and go ahead and tighten down your ball joint, which we will do right now. Alright, and then I'll probably throw the axle nut on next. There's no washer on these CRVs. Kind of integrated in with the nut here. Your 22mm socket and your 19mm wrench. Go ahead and these down on your strut. Next we put the tie rod in, 17mm on the nut. I'm going to go ahead and shut you off till that compressor. So anyway, while that waiting for that compressor to shut off, I already tightened that tie rod nut, and hoping the lighting's good. I can't. This stupid light. I fight more with stuff like this every day than what I should. Really shouldn't. Anyway, I already put a new cotter pin and tightened this up. So all we have left now, we got to put this speed sensor back in, 10mm bolt, and you can kind of clean it up a little bit. This one's got some rust on it. It's not too bad. And I got to tie in the bolt. Actually, yeah, this is cleaned up pretty good. So just slide it back down in there and install your 10mm bolt back. Don't want to forget that, because then your ABS light will come on. Traction control, who knows what else. Alright, now we're ready to put the brakes back on and button this side up. I'm actually waiting for a part for the other side, so I'm kind of stuck on this car after I get this part done. You know, you want to put the rotor on and put that nut screw back in. So these rotors do have a way they go on, kind of. Put them on either way, but then you want to get the screw back in. And it's a Phillips screw. Of course, I don't have a Phillips over here. So one we use the impact screwdriver to get off. Put them on, you just put them on to the tight. So we'll screw that back on. Make sure it's nice and tight. And then we'll kind of turn everything back this way towards us. And we'll put that caliper bracket back on. We just lost the pads. Now I notice on this one, Honda, get this bracket back in, or this pad back on. Honda has a little wire clip that kind of goes up and down, hooks into these two. It's like a half triangle. They hook into the pads. This car didn't have it, so whoever put the brakes on last time didn't reinstall that, or forgot to, or whatever. But it is supposed to have it. So if you have yours, you should have two clips, and they got little feet that go in here and little feet that go in here, and they kind of meet in the middle, like little half triangles. And for whatever reason, this car does not have it, so someone forgot to do it. Last brake job, or lost them or something. I don't know. This car, I kind of just started working on the timing chain on it. One of my recent videos. And that's about it. Well, actually, I think I put a rear bearing on this thing too. But I didn't do the brakes, so you can't blame me. Alright, and these are, I misspoke earlier, tie wraps 19, and so are these bracket bolts, copper bracket bolts. I have to find my tool. So it's, like I said, it's pretty, if you saw me take it apart or saw, you know, put it together, it's just the opposite. And just make sure your pads are seated. We may have to push those calipers back a little bit. Make sure those calipers are sliding. And then this shield, make sure it's not rubbing or doing anything weird. Sometimes it gets bent during the process of doing the bearings and stuff, so just check it. You don't want to hear that noise. Take the wheel back off. So I don't know if this is going to slide back on or not without compressing the pistons. Looks like it will. There we go. So sometimes you get lucky. And put your caliper on. You're pretty much done at this point. Put your wheel back on and call it a day. Of course, I can't call it a day because, like I said, I'm still waiting for a part for the other side. But call it a day on this side, at least. Alright, we're not lined up 100% on this. Alright, well, I'm going to line this up. I'm not going to bore you with that. That's pretty much it for doing a wheel bearing on one of these. Like I said, if you don't have the press, take it to the machine shop, save yourself some money, let them do it, and then you just put it back together. You'll save yourself a decent amount of money doing it that way. If not, you take it to a shop. You can kind of see why this job might be a little bit pricey, because you do have to use a press, and it's a little more involved than just taking, you know, a lot of cars. This hub is all one piece. You just take it off, put it on. It's real easy. But on the Hondas and some of the foreign vehicles, it's, well, actually Dodge does it too. So a lot of them do this press-in style. But anyway, that's about it. It's the same for the back, for the other side. Now the back on these is a hub type, where you can basically change those out in like 15 minutes if you got power tools. Just take the wheel off, take the brakes off, and zip it on and off. But the fronts are press in, press out. CRVs. Pretty much all the Hondas, I think. So anyway, I guess I'm going to go ahead and end this video out. This is the basic outline. I got to get this thing lined up and tightened up, put the wheel back on, I'll be done with it. So I appreciate you watching. Hopefully I'll see you on the next one. God bless and have a great day.